I spent a lot of time working through flipping properties rather than holding properties. If I had it to do all over again, I probably would have just stuck with long-term hold. And we'll get into why that is. There's a lot of benefits to the hold strategy that you don't get with short-term flipping that are evident after you've done this for a while and extremely beneficial.
Welcome to Courageous Stewards, the podcast where legacy meets leadership.
We believe stewardship isn't just about managing resources. It's about multiplying impact, honoring purpose, and building with eternity in mind. Each week, we dive into business-focused discussions on real estate investing on a foundation of faith and family.
We have a desire to inspire listeners with a heart to reclaim their time, talents, and treasures for something greater. Whether you're growing your portfolio, leading a business, or a family, we need to become the best version of ourselves.
This is your space to gain wisdom, walk in courage, and steward what matters most.
Let's build what lasts. Let's lead with love.
Let's become courageous stewards.
All right, guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the hold strategy. But before we get started with that, I just want to kick it to Sean and see what's been going on for you this week.
Not too much. It's been nice after having finished up the Airbnb. I feel my bandwidth's opening up. I've been able to get back to the gym again. I find myself diving into some of my other little projects at the house there. Boys are doing good. Brett was working, doing well in school. He's going to actually put in some job applications today, so I'm excited about that. And then Dylan's in Scouts right now. He's over there, and they're going to be working on the Scout shed and painting that today and stuff like that. So they've got a lot going on. So it's all good on my end. Got a tree at one of my properties right now. I've been watching it. It's when I have to drive by the property every day when I'm going through town. I'm looking at this big willow tree, and I'm like, it just makes me nervous. I think it's okay. Finally, I had somebody look at it. It's probably going to be okay for a while, but I don't know how long a while is. And so that's $2,000 gone because that's going to have to just come down just to be safe. I'd rather write the $2,000 check than have the tree fall in the house, injure or kill one of the tenants, and then have to have them move out. They're not going to come back. I've got to rehab the property.
Insurance claim.
Have an insurance claim. And It's just, that sounds way worse than writing a $2,000 check and trying to be proactive like we talked about on the last episode. So I made the call, got somebody heading over there, so we're going to have that thing cut down. But otherwise, it's been a good week.
It's nice that you can be so close to your properties. There's a lot of investors that spend their entire investment life investing from afar, and they can't do the things like that where they can drive by the property and recognize, I need to be proactive on that particular thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times that a management company are not going to catch the things that you catch, and nobody is going to handle things quite like you would hope that they did. And so being right around the corner to drive by occasionally, it doesn't really take that long. Generally, you're going to drive by anyway to go do something else.
Yeah.
So that is one benefit to having your property so close rather
Very
than
true.
so far away. For me, I took my son out yesterday to go hunting. We have a pretty good-sized property that we live on, a lot of woods, trails, hunting stands and blinds, and my son loves to hunt. So I took him out last night, and we're getting real close to the rut. So the bucks are a little stupider, I guess. They get to that. They get between like the third week in October to the end of November is the rut. And they kind of just ignore their safety to go search for those doe.
Yeah.
And so it makes it fun because you see a lot more activity. The bucks start coming around and things like that. And last night, my son actually took a management doe, and that was a fun experience. We got back in the stand this morning, and it was freezing out. We were shivering for the first, couple of hours until it was time to come up. Finally, we just decided, we've had enough. We're generally fair weather hunters.
Yeah. What time were you out this morning?
We went out this morning at just after 6. Did not see a darn thing. We have trail cams out there, so we were checking those, and probably 6 or 8 deer came through the woods last night. It tends to be that way. You'll see them way more at night than you will in the day. They hunker down in the daytime and don't come around. But anyway, so we're going to go back out a little bit later. That's another benefit to being a long-term real estate investor. You have the freedom in a lot of cases to do things like go hunting with your son.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't otherwise have if you're at a W-2 job or running a company that you have to be physically on site for it to continue to run.
Yeah, that's so true. Just yesterday, the boys were off school for teacher in service. So I had both boys yesterday on a Friday home. Brett went to work all day, but Dylan was home. And so we got to middle of the day. Dylan and I went for a walk, and then we got back, had lunch. I worked for a little bit longer, and we went down, and Dylan and I threw football out back in the side yard in that middle of the day.
Yeah, that's freedom.
I was like, man, it's good.
Well, let's dive into the topic today. The hold strategy is our topic, and I'd like to just kind of start off by kicking it to you and talking about what the difference is between a hold strategy when it comes to long-term real estate or flip strategy. Can you explain the difference between those two?
Yeah, your buy, hold long term is essentially you are purchasing an asset. You're going to have tenants in it. You're going to be holding that property for a long time. So you're trying to buy it underwritten in a certain way where you look at the numbers and it has some cash flow to it. And so when you're holding it, you're not buying it to sell it. You're not trying to make a quick profit. It's going to be long term. That could be 5, 10, 15 years or even longer, because what you're looking at with the buy, hold long term is a comprehensive package basically of property appreciation, depreciation to go against your taxes. You're holding long term for cash flow. And then obviously the property continues to grow in value. And so you're holding that long term. For the flip strategy, it's about making that income. So you're buying a value add property right out of the gate that you're getting for a good price. And what you're looking at with the flip strategy is you'll see it called ARV. So that's your after renovation or after rehab value. So you buy it cheap, you go in and you're going to spend some money on getting it renovated. That's basically forced depreciation. So now you've bought it, you're putting value into it right out of the gate. It's worth more, and so you're going to sell that property now for what it's worth after your value add. And so you'll sell that. You'll get a check for it, and you'll have profit. And depending on how long you held the property and things like that, it's going to determine your tax implications on that return. But I would attribute it to looking like a firecracker. So you're in, you bought it, you fix it, you sell it, boom. You get a nice paycheck and you're on to the next one, right? Whereas the buy, hold long term is more of a steady flow, but you're not getting the big check. Right. It's more of a combination of small, consistent payments month after month.
Yeah.
So that's how I would explain the difference between buy, hold long term versus fix and flip.
Yeah, I like that. That makes sense. And just to be clear, so our audience knows, Sean and I are both buy and hold. Now, I have been a flipper in the past. That's kind of how I started my life as an investor, both in the market that we're currently in, as well as the market that I moved to when in my young adult age in Arizona. I spent a lot of time working through flipping properties rather than holding properties. If I had it to do all over again, I probably would have just stuck with long-term hold. And we'll get into why that is. There's a lot of benefits to the hold strategy that you don't get with short-term flipping that are evident after you've done this for a while and extremely beneficial. And we can kind of talk about that. But let's start with some of the benefits of the hold strategy. Can you give me just a couple high-level benefits and then we can dig into them a little bit closer?
Yeah, for sure. If you were considering doing this and wondering why would buy hold make sense or what are some of the benefits behind buy hold, you're going to be looking at a steady cash flow as long as you're buying the properties right. You're going to have the benefit of long-term appreciation. So the real estate market for years and years has basically appreciated on average of about 3.8%, right around 4% a year, which is great. So the asset itself continues to appreciate. You have several tax advantages that can help the business if you're buy, hold long-term. We use this word lightly because I don't think Jake and I have experienced this yet, but they consider it having passive income potential. But I know I can sit here with Jake right now and there's nothing passive about this space, especially when you're starting out. It's not real. I think you can get there, but it's not right now. And it's a hedge against inflation. It just is. It's the craziest thing. When inflation goes up, prices go up, so do property values, so do rents. It's weird how that works, but the assets don't suffer like the dollar does during inflation.
Yeah.
And then you have leverage, because if you have a variety of properties and you have them in there, you can cash out refi, you can finance off of them to buy other properties. So there's leverage both that you have through purchasing the properties, but that you can use to purchase more. So
those are all really good points. And I think I want to take it back to the fact that the buy and hold strategy is not passive, not even close.
No.
And if you're getting into long-term rentals because you think that they're going to be passive and you're just going to collect a paycheck every month, whoever told you that is lying to you. You can get there. It becomes more passive and easier to manage as you get further along in your experience. But the bottom line is it's very involved. It's not like going to a W-2 9-to-5 job where you're committed for 8 hours a day.
Right.
It's very flexible, which I think appeals to a lot of people. But at the same time, you're kind of always working.
Yeah.
In a way. You never really clock in and clock out. And that works for a lot of people. And for other people, it doesn't. You know, they want that clock out, go home, forget about work, and move on to whatever the thing is that they do. But you really don't get that with the hold strategy, because you constantly have in the back of your mind, I'm not just responsible for my family and my home, I'm responsible for the 20, 30, 50, 80 other families and their children and their home, and all of the responsibilities of my own home just multiplied exponentially.
Yeah.
Especially if you're the type of investor who has integrity and good character and wants what's best for your tenants and for the property, you're going to constantly be on top of what's happening. And if there is discomfort to your tenants in some way, say their furnace goes out and it's getting colder, we just had a situation where we couldn't get a pilot light to stay on. And for that reason, the tenant reached out to us and said, hey, listen, I don't have heat. It's coming on, but then it's shutting off. Could we let that go until Monday because it's a weekend? Well, sure, we could, I suppose, but we're not going to. That's not the business model that we want to have. It's not the character and integrity that we want in this business. And so we want to take care of our tenants. And for that reason, you're constantly active and involved in what's going on, and you want to jump on it as soon as you can.
Absolutely.
For their sake. So depreciation is excellent. Do you want to break down how a property can depreciate or what that looks like from the time you purchase it until the time maybe you sell it or refinance it? Let's talk through that a little bit.
I'm not an expert in this. I'm not a tax accountant by any means.
Sure.
My understanding is the property has a certain amount of value, and the IRS, the government, will depreciate the property itself over 27 years. What that looks like is that if you buy the property and you have the house, the government sees that if that house is left as is, it's going to be 27 years, it'll be worth zero.
It's actually 28 and a half years now.
Is it
We just
28 and a
changed
half?
it. Yep.
So it's going to be, you get that percentage of depreciation each year. It counts as an expense or a tax deduction on your income because that depreciation is there on that particular property. Land doesn't depreciate, but the building on it does.
And I think the best way to explain this is if you look at a house, everything in the house over time is going to fall apart. It's going to break. It's going to need to be replaced. And so what the government is doing is saying that over the next 28 and a half years on a residential property, I think on commercial it's up to 35 years. Again, we're not accountants, not attorneys. We're just coaches. We're giving the little bit of knowledge that we have.
Yeah.
You guys need to go.
Take 5 minutes and fact check that.
Yeah, you need to go and make sure that everything that you're hearing is accurate and legit. But basically, the government says over time, your cupboards are going to break. Your faucets are going to fall apart. Your knobs on your doors are going to need to be replaced. All the things in your house over that time are going to need to be replaced. And so they say, okay, the easiest way for us to depreciate this is just to spread it all out evenly over a period of time. Mm-hmm. And that period of time that they've designated is 28 and a half years, we think, and 35 for commercial properties. So that's kind of helps you to wrap your mind around what depreciation actually looks like. You're not getting anything back through the year. Yeah. It's just when you take your investment properties to your accountant at the end of the year for your taxes to be done, they can depreciate a certain amount of that property every single year to come off of your total income that you made that year.
And I know that's how I do it. I think there's an option to not have to do it yearly to where you can do it at the end, but you have to do it.
Yes.
So eventually that's going to be a thing.
Which actually leads into another concept that you can take advantage of as an investor, and that is accelerated depreciation. In a lot of cases, primarily with commercial property, you can have what's called a cost segregation study done on a commercial property where you hire somebody to come in and they will break down all of the pieces to your commercial property. And then they'll say, okay, we can accelerate your depreciation because of the age of these different items in the property. And for that reason, instead of spreading out that depreciation over, say, 35 years, they can maybe rein that in and give you a far bigger deduction over a 7-year period. Mm-hmm. That's one thing to look at if you decide that you want to get into the buy and hold in the commercial space rather than the single family or anything lower than 5 units. Let's talk about that for just a second. Anything less than 5 units is residential.
Correct.
Right. Anything more than 5 units is considered commercial on the rental space side of things. So keep that in mind as you're investing. It changes a lot. It changes the financing for these properties. It changes your depreciation schedule. It changes how you run your numbers.
Yeah, codes and regulations change.
Codes, yep, absolutely. So something to consider as you get into this. You're going to want to think about which direction do I want to go, because it's going to change how you approach things. Mm-hmm. Less than 5 units is residential. More than 5 units is commercial. So I guess we can move on from there. Talk to me a little bit about mortgage interest and write-offs and how the benefits work for that.
So I guess what's nice about the mortgage interest write-offs is in this space, when you're buy hold long term, you've got your property, you've got your expenses. Well, one of those expenses is your mortgage payment. And so you're taking that off. So when you get the rent on that property, it's going right to your mortgage, and that's going to pay your principal, your taxes, your insurance, and your interest. PITI, I think, is what they call that. So it's a matter of now what you have is that interest can be written off on the mortgage for each property every year. With your taxes as well. So you've got people in there, they're living there, and they're paying that interest. So indirectly, you're seeing your tax bill reduced because you can write that off and you're not paying it. So you own the asset, you don't have to pay the interest because your tenants are doing so. So that translates into a nice write-off. So it's just another benefit to the buy, hold, long-term strategy.
Yeah, that's actually something that I was going to bring up is who's paying the mortgage? You're not paying the mortgage. I mean, you are indirectly. You have to make sure that the mortgage gets paid at the bank, but the benefit to a hold long-term is that your tenants are paying the mortgage for you.
Yep.
They're paying your taxes, they're paying your insurance, and then the mortgage itself. And then on top of that, you get to write off the interest as well, which is excellent.
It's crazy when I started reading about this stuff and the benefits and how it compounds and how if you look at everything together as a package, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I still tell my wife I wish I would have started sooner.
Yeah. So then let's compare that to the flip side of things. Who pays the mortgage while you're flipping the property? You do.
Right, yeah.
Who pays the taxes for the period of time that you own the property? You do. You have to pay for the insurance. If you use cash to purchase the property, you don't have to have insurance technically. But if you don't and something happens while you're working on the property, who pays for that damage? You do.
Yep.
There's a lot of reasons why the hold strategy is so beneficial when you just compare mortgage, insurance, taxes, and the liability involved. The hold strategy wins every day.
Yeah, we can go to appreciation if we wanted to right now because that's what that is. It's another reason why. So the flip, you're going to have the asset for a while and you're buying it and you're selling it. You got a quick buck. You made some good profit on it and that's great. But then you've got to buy another one and you're buying another one. And I'm not saying that can't work. And I know there's a ton of people that do that very strategy. But for long-term buy hold, you make money when you buy real estate. You don't make it at the end. You make it when you buy it. So you buy it right. But for us being long-term holds, my personal example right now is I own 10 properties that are worth around $1.2 million. So if I didn't do anything else, if I didn't buy any more properties at $1.2 million over the next 15 years, and all I did was rented them, paid them off, with that 4% at 15 years, that 1.2 becomes $2.2 million. I made $1 million holding the assets, not flipping them, on top of the cash flow we get year after year from the rental income. So it's just one of those things, that appreciation on the long-term hold is going to pay big dividends at the end.
And the mortgage pay down, which we touched on prior, but if you think about that, you have 1.2 million in assets under management. Maybe you owe 800,000.
Yep.
And over the next 10 to 15 years, that 800,000 goes down to 500,000 or 400,000.
Yeah.
Of which you haven't paid any of it. Your tenant pays all of that. So then if you subtract what the new value is 10 years from now from what you actually owe, you didn't just make $1 million. At closing, if you were to sell all of them, you made 1.7 or 8 or whatever that is. So it's kind of this teeter-totter. The longer you hold, the better the numbers look.
Yeah, the separation starts. So it's another good example to visualize on a graph, right? You start in the lower left and you're going up the one way. So that's your property's value. And then you start at the top corner and you go down. Those are your mortgage payments, and those are all getting covered and getting paid off. So your debt's going down, your appreciation's going up. And that gap just continues to widen the longer you hold.
Yes.
So it's just good stuff, man.
Yeah, that's something to consider if you're getting into this and you're kind of a new investor, is that it's going to be kind of painful for the first couple of years.
Oh, dude.
It's brutal.
Yeah, tough, broke.
Yeah. You feel broke all the time. Cash flow is tight. Expenses seem to be high. You're still learning how to manage. You're learning how to deal with tenants. You're learning how to write leases. You're learning how to fix things when things break. If you have $200-300 a month in cash flow and you have a $600 or $800 repair that needs to be done, and you're able to go do it for $60 rather than pay somebody to go do it for you, then you're in a position when you're new to this where you kind of feel like you have to go try to do it yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually a good thing because you learn about your property.
I do a combination of the two. I hire some stuff out,
Yeah.
but you'll catch me in a unit painting it. I'll go change a heater, especially those ones that hang on the wall. You just take them off and hang up a new one. So I'll go do it. I'll fix the toilet because, it's like I can call somebody, but I can go do that in half an hour. Go to Menards, spend $30-40 on some stuff and do it. So, very true.
Yeah. So why don't we start talking then a little bit about some of the drawbacks and the risks of the buy and hold strategy? Can you think of a couple of things that might be concerning when it comes to hold strategy?
So the hold strategy has some of the same risks that any real estate strategy has, just because it's the market we're in. So you're going to have property management risks. If you are hiring out, just like you were saying earlier, Jake, there's property management and then there's good property management. And then there's how you would manage the property.
Yeah.
Those are three very different things. And so for me, I like being involved. I like being connected to my tenants. I like how I take care of things, like you were saying, driving by it and being able to see it. I know what I would do. That property manager doesn't. And it isn't even that it's a bad property manager. Nobody's going to care more about your stuff than you do. You have a risk there if you do have property management. And honestly, it's even if you are the property manager, it's your property. There's risk.
Yeah.
I've heard several stories just dealing with tenants, maintenance, vacancies, having problem tenants, which you shared in your episode on your first story, which was crazy.
Speaking of that, if you guys haven't heard that story, go back to episode 3 and you can listen to my first investment property long-term and gain some perspective on how sideways things can go.
I think you got all the property management risks on your first deal.
I think you're right. And you know what? I still kept going.
Yeah, amen.
I do have a bit of resiliency that maybe a lot of people wouldn't have, but when you think about it, it's really not that bad.
Yeah.
People don't get in the game for that reason. They hear the horror story
stories,
and think, I don't ever want to have to deal with that. And for that reason, they never get started.
Yep.
And it's silly. It's really not a big deal. You just take things as they come, one thing at a time, and you work through them.
So on top of property management, you got market risk. The market ebbs and flows all the time. Some areas, ours doesn't do this, but rent control, that would be a huge impact to what we do in our space. But market risk, if properties go up and down, 2008, 2009, we've talked about that before. You're not ready for that. And when those property values plummet like that, you don't even know if you're going to have people renting from you at all.
Right.
So there's market risk, liquidity restraints. Real estate it can be sold fast. I think right now the investment property side of things is still pretty popular space, so people are selling. But again, if you're having a down market, you're sitting on them. And if you can't afford them, you're going to be hurting. It's going to be tough to get it. And the refinance option is great. It's awesome to have the refi option unless the market downturns. Because then you go to your bank, like, I need to get a little cash out just to sustain the business because the market's down. They go, well, we can't give you any money because your property's worth X amount now because the market has a downturn. And so it's a big risk on liquidity because of the market.
We were flipping properties when I lived in Arizona, and we had one property that we were still holding on to, and the market turned. This was in 2008, 2009. The values tanked. I think we paid $160,000 for the unit. It appraised for $220,000 or $230,000, and we had it on the market. We just couldn't sell it. People weren't buying at the time, and it was right before everything just tanked and went south. So we refinanced it with the bank. We moved into it for a while, sat on it, and about a year later, we come to find out that after everything had crashed, we had it reappraised, and it appraised for $110,000. We still owed $170,000
Oh my.
on it after we had done the rehab. We were in a position where we're like, what are we going to do? We plan to move back to Ohio. We don't really want to hold on to this property. Now I see, looking back, if we would have had the foresight at that time to know, just hold on to the property as long as you possibly can, it will turn around. I didn't know that at that time. I just thought, I've got to get out from under this.
Let's get
it's
out of
time
it.
to go.
Yep.
We got to get out of it. And so for that reason, we went and talked to the bank. The bank said, okay, you can short sell the property. We'll take a loss on it. We won't come after you, which at the time we're like, great, that's perfect.
Right.
Exactly what we need. We took a bit of a hit on our credit for a while, but we got out from under the property. I just recently went back and looked at that property and the most recent sale of it. Okay, so let me back up. We sold it for $115,000 when we moved back to Ohio from Arizona.
Which was how long ago?
This would have been in 2010. 2010. My son was born in 2010. He's now 14. He'll be 15 this year. So yes, 2010 is when we sold it. I just looked at the most recent sale, which I think was in 2023. It sold for $429,000.
Buy, hold, long term.
That's the perfect example of
so good.
if you can just handle the pain for a while, just ride it out. Put somebody in there to rent it, to make the payment, and hold on to it for the long term. The long-term strategy prevails every single time.
I think so. Yeah. Just do it longer, right?
Just do it longer.
Okay. It's tough right now. You're a little bit backwards. Just do it longer. It'll be okay.
There's so many examples in real estate where you could actually make the argument that you can't lose if you're just willing to wait.
Yeah.
Just hold. Just keep holding, keep waiting. Eventually it's going to come back. It always has, and it will continue to.
Yeah. We want to say that it doesn't come without having some wisdom, some research, and some planning ahead of time.
Of course.
You can still bury it. So we'll just go back to the drawbacks in real estate. One of the tough ones with the long-term strategy is the upfront cost, because you're just buying and you're buying and you're buying. There isn't this thing where you get a check for $80,000 from a flip.
Yeah.
You're sitting there going month to month, fixing things. The account starts to build up a little bit. Back when I was buying, I went a little bit nuts early on in this, because I was so excited and I was seeing things work. So we had a 5-door deal come up and I was not going to miss it. But I needed like $40K in down payment money. And we had just started. We weren't that far in. This was probably a few months into our business and this deal came up. And I was like, I got to figure out how to make this one happen. And so we wiped out the account. Then I borrowed $5,000 from the line of credit. And that was just to pay the mortgages the following month of the properties we already owned. And I look back on that and it's like, who was that guy? Because I tend to be frugal, financially minded. I like to mitigate risk a lot. That was the craziest thing I've done financially from a risk standpoint, was take our business account to zero and then borrow $5,000 to pay the mortgages to secure that 5-door deal. Now looking back, it worked. We got through it. The rents were coming in good. We have great tenants. So we got through that season of broke and we rebuilt. Yeah, with the upfront cost risk of down payment, closing costs, and those repairs that you don't see coming, it's kind of expensive because you never have that one big check. At least I don't, or haven't yet.
Yeah.
To be able to do that with.
And I don't think that we are recommending that anybody goes out and does exactly what Sean did.
Never do never do that, especially starting out. Oh my gosh.
But the fact of the matter is, if you just hold longer, more times than not, it's going to work itself out. The values are going to come back up and you're going to see profits long term that you may not have seen if you jump ship quickly,
Yeah.
get out from under it, sell it, and move on to something else.
I've heard lots of times, even if you're just thinking about starting in the long-term investment property strategy, is it's going to take 3 to 5 years
Yeah.
before you even realize any kind of financial benefit where you're like, okay, this is working now. Those first 3 to 5 years is just building it, paying to keep things going good, and making sure that you're secure and stabilized before you get to start realizing benefit. I've heard that several times, and I'm literally seeing it because we're just going to be going into year 3. So, yeah, I see it.
That's a great topic that we should probably do a podcast on. I've had so many conversations with my wife, my dad, some of my peers, and people that I'm close to about how it just feels like you're constantly running dry.
Yeah.
You never see the fruits of your labor. And I say that word never. When you're in the middle of it, that's the way that it feels. It feels like I just have money outgoing. I don't have income. When is this going to switch where I feel like my work is paying off? And I can tell you that I'm now a little bit further in my journey than Sean is.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing the fruits of that labor. You see how the equity increase, it flips, and you have a lot more equity in your properties. You see that appreciation, your cash flow. When you purchased a property, you may have been renting it for half of what you're renting it for 5 years later.
That's a whole episode.
It really
This
is.
a whole episode.
It really is. But you begin to see everything increase. It's just a much slower burn.
Yep.
Slower pace. You just have to understand that going in. I have a great example of a close friend who has a business that makes a lot of money per job that he does. He may make $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on a few jobs throughout the week and may only have to do 1 a day or 2 a day. And for us to realize those kind of numbers, we have to wait until the following month and then hope that nothing breaks and we're not spending it on another property just to get that cash flow. But then on the flip side of that, if that friend doesn't have a job tomorrow, he doesn't get paid. He's got to go out, beat the bushes, and find another job, which is great. That is high cash flow, and maybe that's something that you can pair with your long-term hold strategy.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Have a side hustle that's getting you that additional cash flow that you would otherwise not have, because the real estate is a long play. It's a slow burn. You just have to be willing to sit in the pain while it's happening so that you can get past it and down the road have a much better situation.
Yeah, it's a testament to like the fact that no matter what your strategy is business-wise, if you're having high cash flow, the fact is everybody needs wealth long term. You need to be building something big for down the road. So if you're doing a business and it's high cash flow on the short term, have some investments, have something you're doing, like you said, to the side that's growing and building. So when you can't go hang lights or power wash houses when you're getting close to retirement, now you've got that portfolio built up, whatever that is, whether it's stocks, real estate, you have that wealth to go into.
Yeah. The long burns really are the things that you want to just kind of settle into.
Yep.
And they say it's not an active investment. And like a series of investments that you make in the stock market, it's true. It's not an active investment. You put money into it, you let it sit there, and as long as you can ignore it and leave it alone, generally it's going to grow over time. At least historically, that's what happens.
It's a lot more passive.
The hold strategy with real estate, although it is passive and it's a long-term play, you are still going to be a little more active and in the weeds of it on a day-to-day basis. So let's talk a little bit about the legacy and stewardship behind the hold strategy. One of the things that I feel is so exciting about the hold strategy is the fact that you're holding for a purpose for your future and really for your family's future, for your children. We talked a lot about stewardship, both as a parent, as a leader, and as an investor or business owner. And one of the things that I love so much about the hold strategy is that you're doing it from a perspective of 20, 30, 50 years down the road. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest benefits with real estate, in my perspective, is holding it forever. Because when you do, if you hold it, say I'm 40 years old and I hold it until I pass away at 90 and the property is paid off, the kids decide, you know what, this isn't my passion. I'd like to sell this property they get a stepped up tax basis, which means they don't have to pay taxes on the sale of that property, which is phenomenal. You think about it all the time. If it's a property that you don't live in, then you have to pay taxes on what you made when you sold that property. But if you hold it forever and you give it to your kids through your will, they don't have to pay taxes on it when they sell it, which means they make full profit. They split that profit, and where they would have made $100,000 a piece, maybe now they make $300,000 a piece. Who knows exactly how that's going to play out, but that's just an idea behind holding it for the long term. If your intention is to never sell it, you can still refinance that property through the years, and you don't pay taxes on a refinance. It's not income.
Yeah, they don't tax debt, man.
They don't tax debt.
It's crazy.
So as your tenant pays off your property, you can go back to the bank and say, look, this property is still worth far more now than what I even paid for it.
Yeah.
And I'd like to refinance that, pull out some of the equity. Then you have that, you keep the property, your tenant continues to pay that property off. You can go do whatever you'd like to with that additional income, which is not technically income, and buy more property, go buy yourself a boat. You can do whatever you want to with it. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily suggest those kind of purchases. I would recommend putting it back into real estate or back into something that's going to be profitable for you. But the reality of the matter is you just want to hold your property forever if you can, because there's so many benefits through the years of the hold process, as well as when you pass away and you pass it on to your kids, they're going to have the benefit of not having to pay taxes on it as well. So why don't you kind of wrap things up here for us, Sean?
Yeah, so we're just going to look back. We talked about benefits, being consistent cash flow, the appreciation, having the tax advantages that you get. They say it's passive. Ours has not been so much, but we'd like to see ourselves there one day. Just a hedge against inflation, which is always a good thing. And then the leverage, obviously, being able to have and use leverage, basically, to grow your portfolio. Some of the drawbacks include the property management headaches. If they're not a good property manager, if they're not present enough or taking care of the property maybe the way you would, you're always going to have to deal with market risk in any strategy of real estate. That's not just tied to long-term. Liquidity restraints. Real estate, like I said, can take time to sell. Upfront costs can be expensive to buy that next deal. Your regulatory and tax changes that can happen while you're in the business can really impact it. And it takes a long-term commitment, like you were saying, Jake. If you're going to buy, hold long-term, you got to have big picture vision for 10 years out. You can't be looking at it from a 2-month picture of getting a paycheck. So when you're looking at it, the question being, of course, is the buy, hold long-term strategy right for you? If you were looking at some of these different strategies in real estate investing, and if it's right for you, it's got to do just like what Jake was saying, was you want to build wealth on a generational standpoint, not just for now, not for tomorrow morning, but for your generation and the one after that. You prefer a steady cash flow, steady payments that you can expect month after month. I know I value that one. And are you comfortable long-term planning and property management? Are you comfortable with that? Do you want to hold real estate for 10 years that you don't live in? Like you nailed on that earlier, was like, I had to own this house that somebody else lives in, and I got to make sure I take care of them. It's like an extension of family, because I got to make sure everybody in those houses is warm, safe, and things are in good operating order, because I want to be good at everything I do, and that's part of that. So, Jay, what would you give our listeners for some options in regards to looking into this and getting started?
Yeah, if you're really wanting to start at the ground level and you're like, man, I just don't know what to do, I don't know where to start, a couple of ideas that you should consider would be, first of all, house hacking. If you are either renting and you want to get into a home, or maybe you're just getting started, you're young, and you're moving out of mom and dad's house, the primary source of a great start in this business is to house hack. And what I mean by house hacking is buy a duplex or a triplex or even a single family home where you can rent out the other bedrooms. And what you basically do is you live in one apartment or one room and you rent the other rooms or the other side of the duplex, triplex, quadplex out to other people. They pay your mortgage for you. You basically, at that point, would be living there for free. And all you do then is learn the process of managing other tenants.
Yeah, a lot of education in that approach.
Yeah, you really learn the nuts and bolts of this business by just simply house hacking. You have to live somewhere anyway, so why not, rather than have the full expense of buying a home, you live there alone with your family or whatever, and you have all the expenses incurred from that, why not buy a duplex or a triplex, put people in the other units, charge them rent, they pay for your expenses, win, win, win. The other idea, well, there's actually two more that I have written down, and we'll dive into these a little bit more in other episodes. Most of these could be a full episode in and of themselves. The BRRRR strategy is a great one. You go find a property that is in rough shape, you fix it up to a point where you can live in it, you move into it, you continue to fix it, and then you refinance it when you get to a point where you can take it to a bank, show them that you've improved the value on it, they appraise it, they refinance out of it, you pull that equity that you forced by fixing it, and then you can take that money and go do it again. Now, this isn't something that you have to live in to do. The BRRRR method is buy it, renovate it, rent it, refinance, and then repeat. That's what the BRRRR strategy stands for. And if you just take those one at a time, you can work your way through a property, refinance it, and move on to another property. And by doing that, you'll build a pretty significant portfolio over time. Remember, this is a long-term play. We're not buying this to flip it in a couple of months. We're buying it to hold it. But the BRRRR method gets you through the process and on to the next property. Another really cool concept is just to buy one property a year. Over the next 15 years, if you buy one property, put it on a 15-year mortgage, put a tenant in there to pay for that mortgage, even if you're not making much cash flow and you're just holding the property, in 15 years, the property that you bought first will then be paid off. So then what do? You go to the bank, you refinance that, you pull out all the equity or a lot of the equity, then you have a big chunk of cash. You still have the property, you still have tenants in place that are then going to pay the new mortgage, and you have a big chunk of cash that you can use either to live on or to go purchase something else with if you choose to. And then at that point, 15 years down the road, every year after that, you can then do the same thing. Year 16, you would pay off property 2. Year 17, property 3, and so on. It just becomes a cycle for the rest of your life, where every year you're refinancing a property, pulling out the equity, you have a chunk of cash, and all you have is 15 properties in total that you can live the rest of your life on.
Yeah, which is nice.
Very cool concept. So those are just a few ideas that people can kind of dive into more. There's so many ideas out there that you can go down all kinds of rabbit trails, but something just to consider. If you guys haven't heard our stories, we talk in episode 1 about how we grew up, who we are. Episode 2 and 3, we talk about our first deal and some of the struggles we had, the numbers behind our first properties. There's a lot of cool information that we had a lot of fun recording. We hope that you guys will go back and listen to those episodes and get an understanding of who we are, and then come along the journey with us as we dive into some of these concepts and details of what it looks like to be an investor, but also what it looks like to be a steward, a courageous steward, and somebody who has legacy in mind, who wants purpose rather than just money. We hope that this resonates with you. Go find us on your favorite platform, subscribe, leave us a good review. It helps us out tremendously, and we hope that you enjoy future episodes.
Thanks for joining us today on Courageous Stewards, where legacy meets leadership and faith fuels the journey.
If this episode stirred something in you, share it with someone who's ready to step boldly into their calling. Subscribe, leave a review, and stay connected as we continue to explore what it means to lead with conviction, serve with excellence, and build with eternity in mind.
So until next time, keep showing up, keep stewarding well, and remember, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's obedience in motion.